Welcome to this explainer. Today we are taking a truly fascinating, deeply chronological journey right into the Islamic theology of the end times. Whether you're totally familiar with the subject or completely new to it, we're going to impartially map out exactly how Islamic tradition describes the final chapter of human history. Okay, let's dive right in.
To do this, we'll trace a soul's epic path exactly as it's laid out in Islamic tradition. We'll start with the promise and threat, move into the signs of the hour, then resurrection and the reckoning, crossing the narrow bridge, the final abodes, and finish up with some remarkable parallels in faith.
Section 1. The Promise and Threat. Central Themes of the Quran.
Right off the bat, to really grasp this timeline, we have to realize that this isn't just about some distant abstract future. In Islam, the promise of reward and the threat of punishment is a literal cosmic reality, designed specifically to dictate present-day morality and accountability. At the very center of all this is Yawm al-Qiyamah, which translates to the Day of Resurrection. This is the definitive event where all bodies are resurrected to account for their lives. The Quran also uses some pretty heavy evocative names for this, calling it the Day of Reckoning, the Encompassing Day, or even the Day of Separation.
So how does it all unfold? Well, Islamic tradition provides an incredibly precise, highly structured sequence of events for the end times. The journey kicks off with terrifying portents, which leads directly to the absolute destruction of Earth. Then the awakening of the dead, an ultimate reckoning, a treacherous bridge, and finally, eternity. Let's walk through these steps one by one.
Section 2. Signs of the Hour, the Major Portents.
This first phase is all about the dramatic signs that herald the imminent end of the known world. Tradition prophesies an immense, almost unimaginable scale of conflict. We're talking about the appearance of a deceitful messiah known as Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, and the release of highly destructive tribes called Ya'juj and Ma'juj. But it's not all doom and gloom. Hope arrives too. Isa, or Jesus, actually descends from heaven to assist a savior figure called the Mahdi in restoring justice. Finally, on a massive cosmic scale, the laws of nature literally invert, culminating in the sun rising from the west. But amidst all this prophesied chaos, there's a truly fascinating detail. Tradition actually states that right before the absolute worst of the cataclysm hits the earth, a pleasant, gentle breeze is going to blow. All believers who inhale this breeze will simply die peacefully. So while the unbelievers are left to face the world's terrifying destruction, the believers are mercifully spared through this wind.
Section 3. Destruction and Resurrection. The Trumpet Blasts.
Now, the real cosmic cataclysm is initiated by the blast of an angelic horn. Just listen to this striking, vivid imagery straight from the 81st chapter of the Quran. When the sun shall be darkened, when the stars shall be thrown down, when the seas shall be set boiling. This trumpet blast literally signals the extinction of all living creatures in the entire universe, even the angel of death himself. In this theology, God alone is left victorious.
Following this absolute annihilation, there's a mysterious waiting period. Commentators often estimate this lasts about 40 years. And then, a second, piercing trumpet blast echoes across the cosmos. This is the moment that wakes the dead from their graves. Bodies are completely reformed and reunited with their spirits, rendering them into whole, fully cognizant individuals who are wide awake and ready to face what comes next.
Section 4. Resurrection and the Reckoning, the Ultimate Assembly.
So the dead have risen, and they're all brought together for an agonizingly long wait known as the perspiration, standing under an unshaded sun for what some traditions literally say is 50,000 years. Then comes the reckoning, and this beautifully illustrates the duality of the judgment. Every single person is handed a physical chronicle of their earthly deeds. If you receive your book in your right hand, it's a moment of pure bliss and triumph. You are heading straight to paradise. But if it's forced into your left hand, the soul is filled with ultimate regret, bound for the fire.
The reckoning also features the mizan, which is the literal balance or scales of Judgment Day. Every single action you've ever taken, every hidden intention, no matter how tiny, is weighed out with absolute justice. Zero excuses are accepted here, though this strict, uncompromising justice is ultimately tempered by God's mercy. Basically, if your good deeds outweigh your bad, you are saved.
Now, you might be wondering about a really fascinating theological debate here. What actually happens to those who never even heard the message of Islam? Well, different schools of thought offered incredibly rich answers to this.
The rationalist Mutazilites believed that human reason alone was enough to find God, so ignorance wasn't an excuse. The Ash'ari view countered that, saying you simply can't be held accountable if you never receive the revelation. And prominent scholars like Al-Ghazali famously categorized people, arguing that those living far away, or those who only ever heard highly distorted lies about the faith, will either be forgiven entirely or given a separate test in the afterlife.
Section 5. Crossing the Narrow Bridge. As-Sirat.
We now enter a highly visual, totally terrifying phase of the journey. All souls must traverse the path suspended directly over hellfire, known as As-Sirat. And here's the kicker. Your earthly piety physically shapes this experience. For sinners, the bridge manifests as thinner than a single hair and sharper than a sword, making it utterly impossible to cross without plunging right into the flames. But for the righteous, the bridge expands into a massive, wide highway, allowing them to literally sprint safely to the other side.
So what happens to those who fall? Mainstream Islamic tradition holds a somewhat purgatory-like concept called shafa'ah, or intercession. It's traditionally believed that the Prophet Muhammad will actually intervene for sinners who proclaimed the oneness of God during their lives, but whose bad deeds landed them in the fire anyway. They are pulled from the roaring flames, cleansed, and bathed in the tranquil river of life to be fully healed before finally entering paradise.
Section 6. The Final Abodes, Jannah and Jahannam.
We've finally arrived at the eternal realms, and these destinations are described with exquisite physical and psychological detail. Both realms are traditionally believed to have 7 distinct levels. In Jannah, or paradise, the higher up you go, the greater the prestige and joy, and you're surrounded by lush gardens and rivers. Jahannam, hellfire, is a terrifying inverse of that, a giant pit where the higher you go, the less the suffering is. Interestingly, both realms even mirror each other by featuring prominent symbolic trees.
It's really important to clarify how believers actually engage with these descriptions. While the vast majority of Muslims anticipate these abodes as concrete, literal realities, a view championed by the classical Ash'ari school, theologians also utilize this terrifying imagery as a highly effective didactic tool. The intricate, deeply imaginative details found in classical manuals were purposely designed to shock the conscience and actively shape earthly morals.
Section 7. Parallels in Faith, Christianity and Islam. To truly grasp the scale of this timeline, it really helps to anchor it to familiar touchstones in Christian eschatology. Just notice how these massive, high-stakes themes echo across human history and between faiths. The grand deceiver, Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, perfectly mirrors the Antichrist. The evil, walled-off tribes of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, those are the Gog and Magog of the Book of Revelation. The merciful departure of believers via the pleasant breeze closely parallels the rapture, and crucially, Jesus returns in both faiths. Though, in Islam, he descends specifically to assist the Mahdi in defeating evil rather than presiding over the Last Judgment.
So, we come to the big so what. Why meticulously map out thousands of years of future cosmic events? Because eschatology is never just about the future. It is the ultimate framework designed to act as a moral compass for the present day. Every terrifying detail of the fire and every beautiful promise of the garden exists to strictly enforce accountability in the here and now.
Which leaves us with a truly fascinating psychological reality to consider. When a civilization believes deeply that every single action, no matter how tiny, will literally be weighed on a cosmic scale, how does that inescapable justice shape the way humanity builds societies today?